Shankara Deshikame Sharanam Bhava Shankara Deshikame Sharanam Bhava Shankara Deshikame Sharanam Bhava Shankara Deshikame Sharanam.
Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvashavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Paratmanamekam jagadbijamadyam niriham nirakaram omkar vidyam yato jayate palyate yena vishvam tamisham bhajeliyate yatra vishvam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. My pranams to all the distinguished guests seated on the dais, and my namaskars to all of you, dear devotees. It's a wonderful feeling, actually, to be here. Nothing can be more relevant to the world, to the human society, than this great vision of non-dualism. If you just look into the history, you will see that whenever there has been times of turmoil, disturbances, a great teacher appears on the scene and he mitigates that situation by conveying to the humanity the idea of non-dualism or non-difference. This has happened from time to time. If you go back just those times before the advent of Bhagavan Shri Krishna, it was a time of turbulence. Shri Krishna appears and gives to the world the nectar of non-dualism. Then again the situation after a few centuries, we come to a time when again the society is found to be in a very disturbed state. People have forgotten the real ideology that should be guiding them. And another great master comes, the great Buddha. He also presents to the world this idea of non-dualism. Again, 1,000 years from there comes another situation where there is turmoil everywhere, confusion, quarreling and bickering between different groups of people, depending upon superficial vision of the human society. And another great master appears on the scene, Bhagavan Shri Shankara Acharya. And what did he do? He gave the same vision of non-dualism to the world, which we are talking about today. Again, 1,000 years later, after Shri Shankara Acharya, the situation in the 19th century, India as well as the world, was precarious. And in that situation, once again appears a great master and his disciple, Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda. And what did they do? once again they retold and represented the ancient Sanatana wisdom of non-dualism to the entire human race. Here, one thing which we have to note: the power of ideas. Ideas are all powerful. In fact, the most powerful thing in the world is ideas. If you just look into any human being's life, it is the idea which decides the direction in which that person's life goes. If that person is subscribing to a certain ideology, it will be going in a certain direction. And if he subscribes to some other ideology, his life will be going in a different direction. And if you just look into the human society, everywhere you will find the human society, human beings are all divided into different compartments, different groups, subscribing to different ideologies. And every group thinks that this is the best. This ideology is the best by which they can make the best of this human lives. Now, certain questions have to be asked here. What is that ideology or the vision or a philosophy which can bring about the true well-being of the human beings? Again, I repeat this statement. The question is, what is that ideology or the philosophy which can bring about the true well-being? I'm speaking about the true well-being. This term well-being can be understood from different standpoints. It is not your mere material well-being. Well-being has to be wholesome. So what is that ideology which can bring about the true well-being of the human beings, both individually as well as collectively? If we ask this question, you can see the different answers. In fact, humanity has been experimenting with different ideologies for the last few centuries. Now, ideologies, you just say it's very interesting. If you just look into the globe, into the world, you will find that, you see, we have different isms. You're all students here. We are all the students of philosophy and different thought systems. We have different isms existing in this world. Capitalism, communism, and what? You can name a series of isms: Kantianism, Hegelianism, Freudianism, positivism, rationalism, empiricism, different isms. And human beings have been subscribing to these views with the hope that these, by following these ideologies, their life will be bettered, improved, and so on. So if we just look into these different ideologies existing in this world and the people who are subscribing to it, we can just see. Let us take the two examples. We know the world, a large chunk of the people in the world, they, really speaking, they believe capitalism to be a way of life. Another group believes communism. The two major groups we can see. And we know how these capitalist countries and the whole ideology is to amass wealth, where we keep the money factor at the center of our life, and the whole philosophy is that we have to amass wealth as much as possible, and mostly driven by the human instinct of unbridled greed, and which also takes the shape of exploiting other people, other nations. We know the connection between capitalism and imperialism, capitalism and colonialism. This is well known in the history. Now the question is, the whole of the different countries in the world, those who subscribe to this view of this capitalist view of society, the question is, are these people really happy in life? Has this ideology really brought about the true well-being of the human being? I'm just placing some questions before all of you. It is you who are to think about it. The question is, which is that ideology which can bring about the true well-being of the human beings? In fact, if you just see the richest countries in the world today, I'm talking about the richest countries in the world. If you just Google it out, you will find out that it is in these richest countries in the world that the instances of psychiatric ailment which is highest. I don't want to give you the statistics and figures of that, but this is a fact. That means money has got nothing to do with your state of mind. Money can provide you comforts for the body, but money has got nothing to do with the state of your mind. So, which is that ideology which will bring about the true well-being of the human beings individually as well as collectively? This is the question. And another one point which is connected to this point is human beings. Today we find everywhere there is a kind of an unrest. See, my whole effort is to just try to make you all understand why Advaita, why Vedic Dharma, why Hindu Dharma. That is my whole stress. Question is, which is that ideology which can bring about the true well-being of the human beings? So, another one point which we have to just touch upon is human beings, unless we become internally integrated, there is something called integration of the human system. Human being, unless we become internally integrated, well-integrated human beings, our whole life will be going in the wrong direction. When there is no integration within, what is happening is we shall become a human being with unrest, and our internal unrest gets expressed in the family. It further gets expressed in the society, in the nation, and then we find everywhere the nations quarreling and fighting with each other. Essentially, if you just look into the psyche of this whole disturbed state in the globe, it is the human being's internal disturbed state which finds expression outside in the form of nations fighting with each other, different groups fighting with each other, all based upon the ideas of differences. But did we ever make an attempt to understand, are these differences really existing? Again, a question which I am placing before all of you. So when we are talking about ideologies, the different ideologies which guide humanity in different directions, this problem comes. Which is the right ideology? Now, I'm just juxtaposing these different ideologies with our Vedic system of thought, with Hindu Dharma. Now, let us just look into this. What is this Vedic system of thought which we are talking about? Now, here, what is to understand this Vedic system of thought? Again, we have to go to the best presentation of what Vedic system of thought is given none by Bhagavad Pad Sri Shankaracharya. I'm just referring to his Gita Bhashyam, where he speaks about this Vedic Dharma. What is this Vedic Dharma, which is today known as Hindu Dharma? All the students should know this. What we are talking about as Hinduism, as Hindu Dharma, is actually nothing but the Vedic Dharma. And what is the speciality of this Vedic Dharma? Shankaracharya says, Vividho hi Vaidiko dharma pravritti lakshana nivritti lakshanascha. I will translate it in simple language. Shankaracharya says this Vedic Dharma is twofold. It is characterized by external action and inward meditation, pravritti and nivritti. Now see, a totally different picture of a human life emerges. It is not just blind indulgence in action driven by greed, driven by selfishness. Here, the Vedas talk about human life should be a perfect blend, a perfect balance between external activity and inward self-inquiry, inward meditation. Now, what is going to be the consequence of this kind of a life? Shankaracharya says, this so-called twofold dharma, what does it brings about? It brings about sakshad abhyudaya nishreyasa karanam jagatasthiti hetuhu. In Sanskrit, he says, this kind of a twofold dharma which is characterized by two dimensions, external activity and internal meditation, it brings about two things. It brings about material prosperity as well as spiritual illumination. And not only that, it says, it becomes jagatasthiti hetuhu. It becomes the cause of the stability of the entire human race. Now, this is the Vaidika Dharma's picture, which stands before us as a way of life in which there should be a perfect blend of external activity and internal meditation or internal self-inquiry, which will bring about both material prosperity, abhyudaya, as well as spiritual illumination. It is this which brings about a perfected state of the human being, both individually as well as collectively. Now, when we are talking about Vaidika Dharma, let me take this discussion one step ahead. When we talk about the Vedas, the very core idea of the Veda, the very essence of the Veda is nothing but Advaita, non-dualism, which the Upanishads present. Now, what is this Advaita? Advaita teaches us that, simply speaking, let me make it as simple as possible. Advaita says, according to our rishis, every human being is divine, every man is divine, every woman is divine, everybody is divine. At the core of all these different forms which we see through our eyes and sense organs, the internal reality of every substance, the internal reality of every living being, every animate entity or inanimate entity, the essential inner reality of everything is nothing but divinity. It is divinity which is throbbing inside as the core of everything, every single atom. This is what the Vedas teaches. So it is that divinity which is the unifying factor which clears the confusion created by the so-called diversity which we see on the surface. This is the central message of the Vedas. They practice to see the divinity throbbing inside each one of us and go beyond and behind the so-called differences presented by our sensory system. Now, I'm just tempted to quote Swami Vivekananda in this respect. Swami Vivekananda very beautifully, he says, each soul is potentially divine. Every statement, every word is important. Swamiji says, each soul is potentially divine, potential divinity. Why potential divinity? This divinity which is hidden behind the layers of covering. This physical body is one layer. Behind the physical body is the so-called mental sheath and the different sheaths which are covering this throbbing divinity inside each one of us. That's why, as it is not manifested, Swami Vivekananda refers to it as potential divinity. Swami Vivekananda says each soul is potentially divine and the goal is to manifest this divinity. Manifestation of this hidden divinity. This is the very purpose of human life. This is what makes the human life most beautiful. And there are some implications to be drawn from this statement. If each soul is potentially divine and this divinity is manifested, what is going to happen? The very three watchwords of this wisdom, Vedas, what will come out of this great vision is that freedom. strength, and fearlessness. Swami Vivekananda says, anybody who begins to manifest this divinity which is hidden inside each one of us, the consequence, the spontaneous, effortless consequence of this manifestation is going to be strength, fearlessness, and freedom. Now just imagine, my dear brothers and sisters, tell me, is this not something the most wonderful thing to happen in human life? Otherwise, we are spending our lives always in a sense of insecurity, always gripped by fear. Our anxiety and fears and insecurities never leave us. Why? Because we have not done the real thing which we as human beings must have done in our life. That is this manifestation of the hidden divinity. So Swamiji says, each soul is potentially divine, and the goal is to manifest this divinity by controlling nature, external and internal. Here comes the whole way of life. It's a life which is given to perfect self-mastery. Now see, I'm talking about Advaita. Advaita is a pure science. This is the Indian Institute of Technology and Science. Advaita is a pure science of consciousness. This consciousness which is hidden inside each one of us, there is a way to bring it out. There is a way to manifest it. And how do we do that? By practice of self-control, by controlling nature, external and internal. And this can be done by different methods. We have the different yogas, the Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Raja Yoga. And the goal is to become free. Swamiji says, Mukti, Moksha, freedom, freedom from all slavery, freedom from all bondage, no slavishness to anything. Then the human being will understand the glory of being a human being. As long as we are slaves to different impulses of the senses and the mind, tell me, are we really free? So, Advaita is that science of consciousness which teaches us how to become free in the true sense of the term. That's why Swamiji says, Vivekananda and Shankaracharya, they were all absolutely uncomparable teachers of the science of consciousness. And they have kept before the world this great wisdom so that we also... Now, this is the ideology that can save the world. The question is, why Advaita? Okay, you go after capitalism. Where is it where is it taking us? Are the countries which are subscribing to capitalistic view, keeping money alone as the goal of life, are they happy? They cannot be happy. It is impossible. They are chasing a wild goose. It's a wild goose dream, wild goose chase. They are not going to get it. So, Vivekananda says, so what is that? Now, I should thank this Madhya Pradesh government who has taken this wonderful initiative to carry this great wisdom to our people, to the youngsters especially. But I see so many students sitting here. What a great initiative. Every state in India should do it. Everybody in the world should do it. This is the only thing which can save humanity. When we begin to see everybody as one, that oneness based upon consciousness. The great statement of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, this entire globe, this entire cosmos itself is one family, is based upon this vision, the vision of the underlying reality called consciousness. That's why, teach everyone. Teach everyone. Teach yourself, teach everyone his real nature. Call upon the sleeping soul and see how it awakes. Power will come, glory will come, goodness will come, purity will come, and everything that is excellent will come when the sleeping soul is aroused to self-conscious activity. These are the fiery statements of this great teacher, Swami Vivekananda, who was one of the greatest spokesperson of this great Advaitic philosophy in the modern times. Just like Shankaracharya 1200 years back, he kept this great wisdom before the entire human race. It was Vivekananda who did it in the modern times. And today, actually, we are all standing here because of these great masters, and we are just small instruments conveying that very idea to all of us. So, dear students and devotees here, we should remember, we were talking about what brings about this kind of an integration of the human system? The human system, which is broken into different compartments. All these modern psychological terms, multiple personality disorder. How many personalities we have? We are all confused. Double personality, triple personality, and God knows what not. The solution to all these ailments is only one: to go into the depth of your own self and understand who we are. Essentially, the whole of Hindu Dharma is only teaching us one thing. That is our true nature, who we actually are. And when we understand that individually, and when this movement takes off, when it becomes a national movement, and when it becomes a global movement, we can expect something wonderful to happen in future. Thank you so much.
भव शङ्कर देशिक मे शरणं, भव शङ्कर देशिक मे शरणम्.